2,000 years ago, when the world was filled with darkness, fear, and cruelty, a child was about to be born, a child who would change human history forever. This is the story of a man who taught love instead of hate, forgiveness instead of revenge, and hope instead of fear. This is the story of Jesus Christ. The story begins in a small town called Nazareth in ancient Israel. A young woman named Mary lived there. She was humble, kind, and engaged to a carpenter named Joseph. They lived a simple life, but they had no idea that God had chosen them for something extraordinary. One quiet night, a heavenly light suddenly filled the room. An angel named Gabriel appeared before Mary and said, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have been chosen by God. You will give birth to a son, and he will save the world." Mary was shocked and frightened, but she accepted God's will with faith. Soon after, the Roman emperor ordered a census. Everyone had to travel back to their hometowns to register. So Mary and Joseph began a long journey to Bethlehem. But when they arrived, the city was crowded. Every inn was full. Late at night, with nowhere else to go, they found shelter in a small stable. And there, among animals, hay, and the cold night air, Jesus Christ was born. That night, a bright star appeared in the sky. Shepherds came running to see the newborn child. Wise men from distant lands followed the star to Bethlehem. Many believed that a king had finally arrived, but not everyone was happy. King Herod, the ruler of Bethlehem, became terrified. He feared that this child would one day take his throne. In anger, he ordered all baby boys under 2 years old to be killed, but God warned Joseph in a dream. So in the middle of the night, Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus escaped to Egypt. Years later, after the danger had passed, they returned to Nazareth. As Jesus grew older, people noticed something different about him. Even as a child, he spoke with incredible wisdom. At only 12 years old, he amazed religious teachers in the temple with his understanding and questions. And then, for many years, his story disappears from history. Between the ages of 13 and 29, the Bible says almost nothing about where Jesus was or what he did. Some believe he traveled to distant lands. Others say he lived quietly and worked as a carpenter, but no one truly knows. Then, at the age of 30, Jesus suddenly returned to the public eye. He was baptized by John the Baptist, and from that moment on, everything changed. Jesus traveled from village to village, helping the poor, healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and teaching people about love, mercy, and forgiveness. People claimed they witnessed miracles. The blind could see, the crippled could walk. Even the dead were raised back to life. Crowds followed him everywhere. To many people, Jesus was the promised Messiah, but religious leaders began to hate him. They feared his growing influence. Even the Roman government became nervous. Jesus chose 12 disciples to spread his message. He taught them truth, compassion, and faith. Then came the week that changed the world forever. Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. Thousands welcomed him with palm branches, shouting, "Hosanna, Hosanna!" But hidden within the crowd, enemies were already planning his death. One night, Jesus gathered with his disciples for a final meal. Today, this moment is known as the Last Supper. During the meal, Jesus quietly said, "One of you will betray me." The disciples were stunned, but the betrayer was Judas, one of his own followers, for 30 pieces of silver. Judas revealed Jesus' location to the authorities. That same night, Roman soldiers arrived and arrested Jesus. He was taken before religious leaders and accused of claiming to be the Son of God. An angry crowd began shouting, "Crucify him!" The Roman governor Pontius Pilate believed Jesus was innocent, but under pressure from the crowd, he sentenced him to death. What happened next became one of the most painful moments in history. Jesus was whipped by soldiers. A crown made of thorns was pressed onto his head. Then he was forced to carry a heavy wooden cross through the streets of Jerusalem. Bleeding and exhausted, Jesus walked toward a hill called Golgotha. People mocked him as he struggled forward. Finally, he was nailed to the cross. Dark clouds covered the sky. The earth shook violently, and in his final moments, Jesus looked toward heaven and said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Then he bowed his head and died. His followers placed his body inside a tomb carved into stone. A massive rock sealed the entrance, but the story was far from over. 3 days later, early Sunday morning, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb, and she froze in shock. The stone had been moved. The tomb was empty. Suddenly, a bright light appeared, and there stood Jesus, alive once again. The world would never be the same. Christians believe that Jesus conquered death and rose from the grave. This miracle is celebrated today as Easter. For 40 days after his resurrection, Jesus appeared to his followers and gave them final teachings. Then one day, he led them to the Mount of Olives. He raised his hands to bless them, and slowly, he ascended into heaven. The disciples stood there in awe, watching him disappear into the clouds. But even today, his message still lives on. Love one another, forgive others, walk the path of kindness and faith. This was the incredible story of Jesus Christ, from his miraculous birth to the cross and the resurrection that changed the world forever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories from history and faith.